If owning a baseball team was such a difficult, trying proposition for millionaires, then why would they keep the teams? Then why would they buy the teams in the first place? No!
To hit the inside scoop, you got the whole crew here today, and not the guy who usually goes after you. So it might be actually like a peaceful Friday. Ken Rosenthal with us, our FT Senior Insider. Let's start with your latest work in The Athletic on your conversation with Francisco Lindor. Can you give us a little cliff notes or at least a part or two that stand out before people dive into the article if they haven't already?
Yes, the article is a question and answer. It's a pure interview. I ask the questions, he gives the answers, and that's it. There's no other prose by me except a little introduction at the beginning. So you're really getting Lindor unfiltered. And the parts that stood out to me were when he talked about leadership and how he has evolved as a leader, becoming more vocal because he felt this year's team needed that. And he explains that there are all kinds of ways to lead and different guys do it in different ways, but this is the way he has chosen for this particular team this year. And he also talks as well about some of his charity work, which is pretty interesting, how it's education based because he never went to college, but he has had in his mind a lot of people educate him. And one thing I thought was interesting too, he is doing this work this year with some kind of dental hygiene project where he invites kids to the ballpark one Tuesday every month and talks to them about dental hygiene. And the reason he does this is because as a kid, he needed braces and he felt insecure about his teeth and didn't smile in pictures. Now, the only reason I found this interesting was that he's Mr. Smile and he grew up not smiling in pictures after he got braces. So it's just kind of neat where his career has taken him. And we talked about a ton of things and he addressed everything very forthright.
Did you see a different Francisco Lindor in this interview than you've seen in maybe not as, yeah, I mean, I guess there's like three different Lindors. There's the Guardians when he was with the Indians Lindor, then like when he first got to New York. Did you see a different one this year?
I would say, Eric, that all players, as they get older, evolve. And he has certainly done that. I don't know that I would say he's a different guy. He's always been kind of the same guy, the way I've interacted with him. But he makes it clear that, yes, he has grown. He has evolved and he has taken on more responsibility. One of the interesting parts here was when he talked about how in his first year with the Mets, he took on too much responsibility. He said, in his words, he was trying to hug everything. And he learned that his job is to be shortstop for the New York Mets and play at a very high level. That's what he is supposed to do. Now, there are other things that come with being a $341 million player. He understands that, but he actually tried too hard that first year and took a little bit of a step back.
Trevor, were you with Lindor his first year?
I was with Lindor. Sorry, I just got back in the internet.
No, you're good. You're good. We had a little Wi-Fi thing, but wait, Trevor, can you confirm, Ken, talking about that? Like, how did you feel Lindor was, based on his first year? I know you don't have him now, but how do you think he's developed as a leader?
I think, Ken, what you just said about the wanting to hug everyone, we had a unique situation with the first-time manager in 21, and it pretty much everything fell on Francisco's shoulders to kind of deal with, like be the leader in the clubhouse. He was talking to media a lot. He was doing a lot for us to the point where we got to the point where as a group we decided that we were like, dude, this is just too much. Like you need to kick some of this stuff off to us, other guys in this clubhouse, because he just felt, because that's when he signed his contract, and I watched him change over time. So into more of a, I don't want to say laid back, but more of a, he set boundaries better, and he for himself, so he can stay within what he can handle as much as he can handle everything well that he needs to handle, and then be the best version of himself on the field, because that's all that mattered at the end of the day. He wasn't the PR team. He wasn't he's not the manager. So he had to kind of figure out how to do that, because, you go to New York, they get paid $300 million. You feel like you got to do everything. And I've heard that more and more. He's getting better and better, even since I've left at that stuff. So it lines right up with everything you just said. He's one of the most impressive professional baseball players I've ever seen, and anyone I played with, I would say he's number one.
All right, Ken, I want to move to A topic that's been on my mind for years, and I don't think we've ever brought it up on this show. I think this is the perfect day to do it because we've got even an extra player, right? We've got 3 players on the show today. So Paul Skeens is winding down his rookie season. It's actually a very intense rookie of the year race. I know it's Jackson Merrill. There's some others that are playing really well now in the National League. My question to you is, there is so much now banking on finishing in first or second place to get an extra year of service time. I don't know if some fans realize how much that can change a career. Getting to free agency sooner, it changes how you negotiate for an extension. What are your thoughts on writers impacting careers and contracts to this extent? The reason it's been on my mind for years is Byron Buxton's contract is heavily incentivized. A lot of it's to do with MVP voting, so he hasn't been there anyway. But I remember when it happened at the time, I'm like, he could make an extra $10 million or something this season if he gets voted in the right way with writers. So what do you think?
Scott, it's a very interesting question. And if you recall, a couple of weeks ago, I co-wrote an article about Skeen's situation. And this was with Stephen Nesbitt and Zach Mizell of The Athletic. And we kind of went into that topic because it is different when you get to service time. When a guy's getting a $50,000 MVP bonus, even $1 million MVP bonus, I'm not so worried about that as a writer. It's not great. I would prefer that the bonuses are not tied to our votes. It's better that way. But I've never heard of a player actually, or an agent or anyone telling a writer, hey, here's 10 grand, vote for my guy. And I don't know that that would go down very well anyway. But it's one thing when you have these relatively small financial stakes. And when I say relatively, I mean in the baseball world, not in the world of an average person. And it's another thing when it's service time and all of the implications that you just mentioned. And when we wrote that article about Skeens' situation, I actually asked the president of the BBWAA, who is a colleague of mine at The Athletic, Chad Jennings, about this. And his answer was, listen, we're transparent with all our awards and we go about it that way. All the votes are revealed. And the one thing also that came out of that discussion was that the WAA did have some concerns when these new rules regarding the service time and the voting and Rookie of the Year were implemented. Those concerns were expressed to the league, but in the end, the BBWAA decided, okay, we've got 30 voters for each award. It's going to be hard to corrupt one guy and disrupt the whole process that way. And we think because it's 30 voters, we don't believe that anyone is going to be compromised here. Now, again, if you talk to a sports editor of a newspaper, someone who is talking about pure journalistic ethics, we shouldn't be voting for any of these things, right? Not Hall of Fame either. But I think sometimes we can get carried away with thinking about these things, and I don't know that voting for the Hall of Fame is a bad thing to do as a journalist. In fact, it gives us plenty to write about. So there is a line, and I get concerned about the line myself, but I don't believe the line will be crossed. And while it is an ongoing concern, it seems to me we're in the right place. I don't love it. I'll be upfront about that. I wish it weren't this way. But at the same time, I don't see it being something that leads to a bad thing.
In my opinion, I'm always good to see you first, Ken. I haven't seen you in a while. I'm always trying to figure out the good, but I'm always trying to figure out the bad in things. And for me, in my nature, I always steer to the bad, just the way I'm just raised and put into it. You want the good at everybody, but for this situation, I don't know. You think about the whole thing, like you guys are going to make decisions on big implications for some guys, and it changes the whole outcome of a draft. It changes the outcome of, I know there's millions of players that are going to, and there's only 20 rounds, but I don't know. I just don't see this being as a good thing, in my opinion, that the writers have this much sway on it. And I do think, as you said, you're concerned about it. I do think that, people are, whether they're going to talk or where, oh, well, I work for this team for a couple of years and that team, maybe I'll sway this way. So that's my big problem about it. And I think you hit that on the head.
I will say one thing in addition to that. Okay. If you were playing currently, or even I could say this now that you're a former player, this is not something the writers introduced. We didn't have any say in this being introduced in the last CBA. This was something the Players Association and Major League Baseball agreed upon. So in that sense, we're kind of innocent victims here. We didn't start this. we didn't ask for it. It just kind of happened that way. And again, if I were a player and had these concerns, and if I were a player, I'm not saying these concerns are illegitimate. I kind of would have the same feeling you would, Todd. I'd go right to my union and say, why are we doing this? Why do the writers, even if it's 30 of them on a particular award, have this kind of power? Evidently, no one asked that question.
Yeah, and I think, and I'll give an example. Like back when I played, I know Trevor and Eric remember this, when they changed the per diem on each road trip. And I remember when the year came around, I'm like, wait, what happened? Like nobody even knew. So like this right here, when I'm playing, I'm sure half of the players had no clue about this either, just to kind of button it up. So it's like, I don't think everybody knew, in my opinion, because I think it's a big thing that should have been talked about more.
Considering all that went down in the last CBA, all of the major issues that were discussed and fought over, I seriously doubt that this was topic 100, much less topic 10. I just can't even imagine.
It's important. You know what I mean? I think
it is important. And it does raise the potential for conflicts and all of that. And it is a fair question to raise. It was a fair question for us to raise with the league. Ultimately, we accepted it. Not that we could really do much about it, but at the same time, if I were a player and I had a problem with it, I wouldn't be talking to the writers about it. I'd be talking to my union.
100%. Yes. The Philly-Atlanta series. You are doing the Philly game tomorrow, correct?
I am, yes.
Now that you saw last night's game, the outcome, going into that game, the Braves win, looked like they were going to win. Now they're catching the Phillies. Now they lose. Maybe they're pushing a little bit farther back. The Mets are coming. Which team has more of a push going in which direction? The Braves going towards the Phillies, or the Phillies, or the Mets, or the Braves worried about the Mets catching them?
It's the latter. And the Braves have to get in. That's their focus. And listen, if they would have won last night, we'd be talking about, a 4-game deficit instead of 6, 3 games left in this series. Maybe we have something by the end of the weekend. But in reality, it's pretty difficult to win a 4-game series. And who knows if that was going to happen anyway. The bigger issue is simply getting into the playoffs and holding off the Mets, who are 3 games back, game to game, with their big win yesterday, and the Braves lost to the Phillies last night. So the Braves are a really interesting team to me, and not simply because they're playing often 3 guys who were released in their lineup, Urshela, Laureano, and Merrifield, but because if they do get in and their starting pitching stays intact, they're going to be in a spot that they haven't been in the last 2 years, where they have actually a healthy, effective starting rotation going into the postseason. If you go in and you get in with Sale, with Fried now rounding into form, with Lopez, with Schwellenbach, with Charlie Morton as your number 5, you're a pretty dangerous team. I don't care where your offense is. Obviously, you need it to be at a certain level, but you know what I'm saying. So their concern is simply getting in, and I don't know that catching the Phillies was ever realistic, and it certainly became much more difficult after last night.
Talk about procrastination. You know, when you have millions of things to do, but we end up getting lost in our phones? I've been working with a new secret weapon to kick procrastination to the curb, Thesis.
Thesis is a brain-boosting supplement made with natural ingredients to support faster reaction times, speed up mental activation, and help improve concentration.
For a limited time, FT listeners can save $60 on their first subscription order with code FOUL at takethesis.com. That's $60 off your first order at takethesis.com with promo code FOUL.
As a parent with multiple jobs, a lot on my mind, and a high bar for wellness goals, I'm looking for an edge to improve productivity and focus, and that's hitting for me with Thesis.
So take the free 3-minute quiz to find out what your brain needs. Head to takethesis.com and use code FOUL to save $60 on your first subscription order when you sign up for Thesis. That's $60 off your first order at takethesis.com with code FOUL. Maximize your mind with Thesis today. And just a reminder, we have Hammer Territory, we have the Phillies show, so both sides of that series covered with shows under the Foul Territory network. Okay, I want to take you to a direction from yesterday's Fair Territory episode that I liked. You covered the Pittsburgh Pirates. Like, hello, where are we at here at this point? This season looks like a fail. I mean, it's not going to be a better record it most likely at this point at the end of the year. So here's my follow-up question to what you talked about yesterday on the show. We're going to cover this later, but Mark Cuban tweeted yesterday about the Pittsburgh Pirates. I don't know if you saw this, but it was pretty simple. But, people have been clamoring for him to buy the team, as if anyone could just buy a team. I mean, he has the money for it. But he said, if someone offered you a job that paid $25 million or more per year to stand in Market Square and let the entire city of Pittsburgh yell at you, would you take that job? That job is owning the Pirates. Why would they sell? I thought it was very strong and pointed because he's actually an NBA owner. So when owners cry poor, it can only go so far when there is someone who is in the same business who probably knows quite a bit about how their books work. And he is confirming that they do, in fact, profit hardcore. And that is why they do not want to ever sell a team like that unless, I don't know, maybe you throw out some wild number. But you know what I'm saying? What did you take from someone like that in the owner space calling out Bob Nutting and the Pirates?
Well, it's all that you just said, Scott. It's very interesting. And here's the other side of it. If owning a baseball team was such a difficult, trying proposition for millionaires, then why would they keep the teams? Then why would they buy the teams in the first place? No, they're doing just fine. And they're making money. To what extent, or to the different extents that they do, that's, of course, something that goes on in the game. But the Pirates, in particular, a team that has had low payrolls, gets a lot in revenue sharing. I would think they've done rather well over the years. And to get to what we were talking about yesterday, the owner, Bob Nutting, said before the season started, we wrote a long article about the Pirates in The Athletic, and it was pointed. And he responded in that article and said, we are looking to take a meaningful step forward this season. We are looking to be either in the division race or at least for a postseason berth. Hasn't happened. And frankly, their record is going to be about what it was last year, at least if they continue at their current rate. 7-18 in August. Not good. And this is a team that has had some really good things happen. Paul Skeens being the most obvious, Jared Jones, Nick Gonzalez, some of the young talent that has come up. But where are they going? That's my question. And is this really going forward? Doesn't seem to be, at least in terms of the record. Now, you can point to some things underneath. That's fine. They've been pointing to those things for a long time now. And at some point, they've got to get better in a division that is weak. A division that is there for the taking if they ever get their acts together. And the same would be true for the Reds, for the Cubs, for the Cardinals. Everyone chasing the Brewers. Everyone can be the Brewers in that division. But there's only one team that's leading it and that has been consistently good over these last several years, and that's Milwaukee.
Yeah, and I'll just say from interacting with fans all the time on socials, I think the boiling point is higher than ever in Pittsburgh, and they want the story to be told. Sometimes fans get almost defensive about it, but they want everyone to talk about it. Like, hey, what can we do here? We feel helpless about the situation.
Scott, you're absolutely right. And I actually went back and looked at that article again this morning. I was looking for a particular detail that we had, and I noticed there were 740 comments on it. That's high for us. That is a lot of commentary. And again, it is in many cases, in most cases on that particular article, fans wanting this out there, wanting this team called out. Now, it's funny. Different fans react differently in different cities. They react to different messengers in different cities. I remember when I was in Baltimore, when I first got there, and in the years that followed after I became a columnist, I was not from Baltimore. And if I would criticize the Orioles, oh my gosh, who are you? You're not from here. Well, then certain fan bases reach a point where they want their teams to take it. And the Pirates are certainly there. And there are other teams too, Scott, that are in that position where the fans are incredibly frustrated right now. St. Louis is one. San Francisco is one. And I'm missing, I'm sure, a few, but you can name Miami and some others as well.
Seattle, for me,
Seattle's
right now,
one.
based off what's happening this season, I would say that one qualifies. So, yeah, there's quite a few. Toronto, Oakland's in a whole nother world because that's also business and relocation related. So we've covered that at length. But Ken, thank you so much, and have fun with the game this weekend. We'll be watching on Fox.
Thanks, guys.
Hey, everybody. Be sure to like and subscribe for more content.
We're back here every weekday, all year long, so do not miss an episode.
The videos are coming in all day. Here's another video you might enjoy.
Baseball the way it should be covered.